Good morning, and once again on behalf of Newgen, I would like to welcome all of you. And this is our inaugural customer meet in US. And I think after this, we follow it with at least 3 more customer meets at different part of the world. And the good thing about is the product vision or the product direction or the product roadmap. I think this is the first time we are presenting it for this year, and so this is an inaugural presentation for the product roadmap as well. I think Janal, thank you for painting the vision for future, and we all believe the digital is going to be a disruptive and a transformational exercise. It's not an incremental thing, and there is surely a relevance to our product portfolio and how our products are going to help our customers to sail through this journey and find the alignment itself. So what I do is, I'd just spend a little bit of time on the current existing product portfolio to put the context in terms of what we have, and then discuss a bit about the key things which influence the product roadmap in general itself. It's not true for us only, it's true for all the companies. And then from there, then probably go specifically to look at each product line and things, what things to expect in next a time frame of roughly around 6 months to 18 months time frame. So I'll just move ahead, and I think straight away jump to the current product suite. I think most of you know, I think Newgen is more known from the product brand, the OmniDocs and OmniFlow, rather than Newgen itself. So the ECM is the flagship product. Predominantly, we manage the enterprise content end to end itself, right from the creation of content, moving that content into business processes eventually, and the records management of that content, disposition of that content. That's the whole product suite. And this product suite has interesting products in terms of capturing the content. We have distributed capture solutions, we have cloud-based capture, web-based capture systems in that. We have, of course, a great set of tools and technology for extraction and content recognition technologies itself. We call it Omni Extract, Omni Capture itself. There are huge lines of products eventually. The other important product is the business process management suite eventually. This is a product to eventually put the organization's business processes on a path of continuous improvement. Design these processes, eventually get the insight into those processes and continuously refine those processes. The idea is that the process frameworks are never stable eventually. With evolving changes in the market, changing customer expectation, the process would need to change. And once you get better insight through intelligence and through the data what the processes throw back you will be able to modify them continuously. Third is a very interesting product, though we may not have a large number of installations in this part of the world, but is being used at many customers, which is the customer communication management. We strongly believe that the output management or the content which is getting created out of the organization, when it goes out to the customer, you need to unify and bring control to that eventually. So this product provides you the template management, the output management. It provides you the personalized and consolidated content across various delivery channels itself. That means whatever content you fetch, whether it's going to be a courier, whether it's going to be an email to customer or a website delivery, how do you make sure that the content is very consistent to the customer? Just to go a little more into the ECM product portfolio, predominantly on the capture front, we have the capture related technologies, the aggregation of content into the system. And more what's happening, apart from the transactional content which most of the businesses use itself, a lot of digital content is getting generated. And I'll just also take some time while I'm discussing the future roadmap, how this digital content is going to be absorbed into the system. A lot of other content, like we had a discussion in the morning that audio video is growing, and the need of having audio video as part of content management and associating the rules of records management with that is becoming very essential itself. And one of our strengths is, feeding this content which has been captured into business processes and transactions. That's where we are very strong itself. And so the whole part of BPM, the workflow, and providing content to that workflow. Okay. Thank you. Another part is records management, and we are DoD certified in records management, and that's a very important area in the whole ECM suite. Moving on to the IBPS or the BPM suite itself, just run over the key things which we have in this is It's predominantly collaborative process design is very essential when you're defining, and I think we are encouraging our customers to go and design their business process on their own itself. Once you design business processes, it's very important to see the simulation of those in terms of simulate the business processes, eventually get the data out of them and keep on continuously feeding that back to the system. We have the functionality to do the rules management. We have the BRMS engine itself. We also recently have added the complex event processing itself. As Channel was saying, there's a lot of data which the processes keep on throwing up for improvement of the process eventually. The events which are happening across the organization which influence your the process, if they are captured and syndicated back into the process, it can throw up great insight into process improvement. Lot of work we do is around integration, the ready-made integration adapters, whether they are with core systems, whether they are ERP systems, whether they are web services, and so that's a very important strength of our product itself. Of course, the content management also integrates with the whole suite to provide the content in those business processes. So just to summarize, collaborative workspace and modular process simulation. Of course, you're compliant to the BPM standards itself, and complex event synthesizing, what I was just explaining. This is about the CCM product, the customer communication management or the output management product eventually. So what this product is about, eventually providing organization the template management tool, eventually where all the company's correspondence could be managed in forms of templates itself. When we say templates, eventually these templates are designed, put into process of approvals itself. From this template management, once you have these tools in all these content and templates, then you can send them across various delivery channels itself. So you could have volume printing in terms of volume sending, in terms of bulk communication. You could have interactive communication when a request for a statement or a request for an event comes, or you could have an web-based where you're throwing this content either on mobile devices or on your web content itself. The output channels are predominantly, as I said, web presentment, emails, print, mobile. And on the authoring side, you can use our authoring designer, or you could use any of the Word or Adobe InDesign to do the authoring of this. Again, sits very nicely with the external systems. You can integrate seamlessly with your ERP or the core banking systems. So customer communication management, again to summarize, reusable widget-based design. So initially, the design components you use in one of your reports can be reused across multiple reports so that you don't have to redesign itself. You know, the examples are tomorrow if you have companies branding changing and you want to change the brand message, change the logo, you don't have to redesign the whole corporate communication which is going out itself. You can get seamlessly. Interactive PDF generation is becoming very popular, that you would the statements or the PDF statements which you send to the customers, they are very interactive. People could always go and operate on this. They could perform operations like they could generate a lead. It could eventually summarize information for him or give him an alternate view to see his data itself. Multi-channel output I covered in terms of email, print, web, and mobile itself. And of course, monitoring and tracking in terms of whether the end delivery to the customers happened, what's the response coming back from the customer. So this is summary of what we have today. Of course, the individual product lines are pretty large because they got multiple sub-products within them itself. So most of that information is part of the brochures and the handouts you have. It's in that. So let me come to now the drivers of the product roadmap. So, can I have a glass? Can I have a water? So I think, as we understand, the product gets influenced by three major areas. One is, of course, the technology and the business changes which are happening in the market. So we have no control over it. The market shifts, the customer expectations itself shift because of the market, as well as the technology stack, because everybody is modifying his technology, whether it's the... Thank you, sir. Sorry. So these changes itself eventually are leveraged in our systems, and they end up coming with either altering the current offerings or modifying the whole offering or coming up with a new product set. So some of the key things which we have already assembled on which where the product roadmaps are getting. One is social content for businesses eventually. We understand, the transactional content which is either coming from documents or in-house created documents. Beyond that, a lot of social content is getting generated. Either they are from the social channels which the organization owns, or there are other social channels on which the customer influences. So both social content eventually, in terms for what you use for your business, needs to be consumed in business processes and also needs to probably archived itself. So that's one of the key influencers of our product roadmap going forward. Mobility, of course, is changing everything. We have probably in the showcase, you see the demo of the Zappin product itself. Mobility is becoming also the primary driver for all the product interfaces going further eventually. So almost mobility first. So most of the products which are going to getting translated or transformed will have mobility first as their primary design interface. A lot of advanced analytics eventually is getting into systems. Janil touched upon certain points about in terms of how can you use the event data or exception data and back into the process, how the process can be remodified and remodeled because of that. So that's one very important area. Both analytics of the content, which is the content analytics, what you get in terms of your digital content, which is not a transactional content. How do you analyze that in terms of creating its own virtual repositories, its taxonomies, and then the operational intelligence of your systems is going to become richer. Federated content is one very interesting area. I think what we have seen over years that the content repositories, which organizations always try to make a single large content repository in the organization to define its all record management, is no longer becoming true. A lot of content which the businesses operate reside outside the organizational boundaries or even federated systems itself. You could have SharePoints, and on the other hand, you could have also an enterprise content management like in OmniDocs or a product like Documentum. Similarly, the consumers in your organization are also getting exposed to the easy content management. That is typically content management experiences on the web or the cloud. They may be using Dropbox or they may be using other. So the content is getting federated across the organization. So how do you combine the role of ECM in that space? What would ECM deliver when you say enterprise content management? How would it consolidate and give you a common view across all these federated content repositories? So that's one of the directions where the product is taking. Cloud offering itself is very important for us. We have already all our product suites which are already on the cloud. Eventually, they can be either have in-premise cloud or they could be completely as hosted solutions itself. The other part is collaborative creation of process and content for processing. This is another very important area. So collaboration is becoming very key in terms of any activity we end up doing. So collaboration not only within the channels within your office, also going beyond that office. Whether you're trying to design processes, you're working at a particular item, or you're trying to review content, collaboration is going to be the key part of each one of those. The other two very important part of the roadmap, one is the customer feedback expectations eventually. So we do summarize. We have events like we had in the morning where we had a customer feedback session. We have this all across. We have also structured customer feedback processes. Then there are our points of contact. They keep on collecting information. So a lot of that gets into the product eventually. So I've just summarized few important things which are directional things out here. A lot of things are happening around prescriptive health monitoring on production systems. Once the kind of systems we sell become very critical to enterprises. Eventually, they end up, as somebody was saying in the morning, they end up being more core than the core systems of the bank. So a lot of people are. So in terms of keeping them up, keeping them healthy is becoming very essential. So a lot of work is happening on the prescriptive health monitoring and production system so that they could self-diagnose in terms of going even to a level of self-healing or at a particular stage. Thin footprint with consumer internet UX. This is very important what's happening eventually. The consumer experience of user interfaces is changing how the enterprises used to give. So if you look at traditional content management systems, if you look at their interfaces of documents, how they used to throw up repositories in terms of how you used to search on a kind of a metadata or a tag-based search. On the other hand, look at consumer experience, how they see their enterprise content or how they see their personal content management. The experience of Dropbox or Google Docs or eventually even a Google search is very different. And eventually there is a push coming to organizations to change the experience, how the employees start using that system eventually. So a lot of work is going to happen in terms of UX, user experience management of your products. So another very important part is that the enterprise systems which are on continuous change path, there is always a kind of a project going on to improve the current installation. It has to be designed, deployed, tested, and again the stage completes. So we are setting up a framework, DevOps based pattern for build, test, deploy to reduce the TCO for the enterprises. This is another thing which is going to come up in the product roadmap. The another very important thing is to reduce the time to eventually go live is about process accelerators and integration adapters. So a lot of new process accelerators, Anand covered some of those which have been got created, and also a lot of integration adapters are continuously getting updated into the system. The third most important part is the global standards, compliance and security. So what this eventually means that the standards are emerging. I think we have standards, as we said, we covered the DoD. The new standard which is emerging for the social content is the NARA guidelines for social records management. We have the CMNM, the standard for the case management notifications. So these become very important. Apart from that, penetration and security audits are taking a center stage. Not only what we do in software when we build it, it's also when the software gets deployed, integrated in an ecosystem. Again, you need to probably get into the security audits and penetration testing on that. So these are the three very key influencers on the product roadmap. So let me get into now what are the key things happening in the enterprise content management space for us, and then I'll take the other two product lines. So social records management system is going to come up in next 6 months time in terms of what it eventually enables organizations to define a single strategy for managing social content which they either generate or they consume in business processes eventually. There are guidelines being worked out right now by National Archives, the NARA guidelines eventually for social content records management. And so what it would provide to the customers eventually to integrate social interactions to their business operations eventually, capture and analyze the social content for getting better customer insight, and integrate with popular third-party sites, because the social channels are always growing. You have the Facebook, Twitters, but again these social channels are always growing. So how do you make sure that you can capture all that content and put in your system? So this is one very important product coming up. The other product which is very important change in the ECM is about the virtual repository services. I covered some part of it when we are talking of federated content, but what we believe in terms of eventually the repository service, which is a traditional look of how the content management is organized, will become virtualized, because it will become personalized up to the level of which business function is using it. It will become personalized to the level of which person is using it. So context-based content delivery will take the center stage. So no more people may ask for, give me this content. The content may be provided automatically in the context of the business operation. And you may have to provide him relevant content beyond what he had asked for eventually, so that you could leverage the organizational content itself. So it's a very important change. So we'll assume that there are going to be federated content management systems. There are going to be multiple repositories. Some of them may be Newgen repositories, but the others may be completely non-Newgen, and they may not be also lying within the organizational boundaries. So how do you provide, in such case, a single view for business operations across all the content? So that's the product which is getting formed. So content collaboration platform is the third very important change which is happening itself. So this is the change of bridging the gap between the consumer content management and the enterprise. So consumer content consumption experience is very different from the enterprises. So we are building this product platform for collaborative content sharing and authoring eventually. So whether you are talking of creation of content itself or review of content, we want to provide a collaborative platform to customers to operate on that. Mobile content management framework is a very important and a very powerful tool we already have. We have already a product in this line, and we are very strong in anything which is about mobile capture, any capture from mobile devices and bringing into business transactions. We got a very strong imaging support for mobile imaging. Very few companies in the world operate on that. Only there's another one company which operates in this. So what we are doing is we are enhancing this imaging so that more and more imaging itself happens on the client side. So the experience of once you capture content for business on the client side, to make it leaner so that it can be transmitted faster, to do a quality analysis right and there so the transaction, the back office iterations get reduced, to get extraction and recognition so that the manual activity gets reduced out of that. So we are trying to plan, the ICR, the OCR, the MICR, all that in terms of from the mobility devices getting that data out of that. So the other part is about next generation content analytics eventually. So this is very important part because we assume that for the vision of context-based content delivery, you have to have a very strong content analytics engine itself. So content analytics will become the center stage, especially when you are talking of non-transactional content management, because digital content is growing across channels. So how do you organize it? Do you really again want to classify it in invoices, folders, documents, customers? It may not happen that way. You may have to deliver it in context of what you are doing itself. So this is about the ECM. I'll just move on to the IBPS roadmap. Again, two very important things out here are social and analytics itself. And to explain a use case, I'll just probably so this is a typical use case which we perceive that organizations and some of our customers are already doing this eventually. You will have the social integration layer eventually to capture the social content from various channels. You will do the analysis of the social content eventually to classify whether the social content is related to an opportunity of business, is it relating to a complaint itself, and any other things. So these will get automatically because of analytics channeled into different channels. Eventually a business process would take over. There would be a business workflow. So it will receive a request, process the business, send a response, and eventually have a records management strategy to archive the social content itself. So a typical approach for this is that you will have social integration toolkit support where customers don't have to bother about which social channels are there. The integration toolkit would automatically capture these social contents, eventually analyze it and put it in various different buckets, whether it's a process of customer servicing, it's a lead for marketing, and then the BPM engine would take up those itself and again respond back on the social channels itself. So this is there's a saying these days. Previously used to have, in case you had a complaint with a company, the best way was to go to their corporate marketing site and put up a complaint out there. You used to get faster responses. These days that has changed. It's better to put a message on the Twitter or on their Facebook, you get better response from that. And the responses are quick as well. So the people are already using it. Sorry, just. The other very important part of the IBPS roadmap is the mobility framework. We assume that the process modeling, process work desk eventually where people are operating on business processes, we need to provide the mobile interface for that. So this is coming up in next 3 months. We'll have this product ready eventually where the whole process orchestration right from the design to consumption and execution of process would happen on the mobility framework itself. The other very important product which is coming up in the IBPS is the case management framework 2.0. As Janelle explained that the line between a structured process and an exception is becoming very thin eventually. So the case management framework 2.0 is eventually for our effort to eliminate the difference between unstructured process and structured processes, because eventually we believe that everything can evolve from an unstructured process to structured process, and unstructured activities will always become part of the any process itself. So we're creating this framework which is a case management framework 2.0. We call it a system of records and engagement. So eventually a case is an entity on which people engage, whether they engage across, whether they're collaborating on the case, whether they are sharing across a business process or invoking business processes eventually. And whatever they are doing eventually, the system is continuously learning eventually. And so the processes are dynamically changing, the interactions are dynamically changing. So it has got a very strong analytics engine for process discovery, learning itself. So what we are saying is that you could start every process with a very small base process and keep on evolving the process, and system will keep on giving feedback about how the case interaction should be handled. So key things about actionable intelligence, orchestration of this process, and a common object model which gets moved between users, processes, and the case activities. So customer communication management, again, I'll have to make it very short out here. What's coming as new in this is few things which are, of course, collaboration is taking the center stage, collaborative template designing, component-based design for quick report assembly. One very interesting thing which has come from our feedback from customers is cascading upgrade for enterprise artifacts. So what's happening, imagine an insurance company which has got roughly around 1,000 document types of various templates to be distributed, and they think of changing their logo, or they think of a merger eventually. How are they going to change their applications? So the functionality of cascading upgrade is that once you change your design theme or a logo, how does it apply without any system change across the enterprise itself? So very important feature. The two new product variants which we are creating around the same product, one is about output management for enterprise apps. I'll just spend a time explaining this. So what's happening is a lot of output management or content generation is happening in a lot of enterprise applications across the enterprise. So we assume that our customer communication management could solve their problem of taking over this load of generating these outputs and take it out of those enterprise applications. So this is a framework where a kind of a CRM package or any core banking would never be able to go and directly generate a printout or generate an email. They would always use the customer communication management sitting in between. So this is one of the variants of product which we're working. We are already integrating with some very important system integrators, both on the core banking side and some of the enterprise applications which is being sold in the market. The other variant is dynamic wealth management reporting itself. Probably we have another session in which this will be taken up in much more detail itself. And the last slide I have is about mobility, and Zappin is the current name of our product, and this platform is getting upgraded. The key 4 things which we are doing is, one is about rapid development. So the philosophy behind this product is eventually the mobility use cases in enterprise are growing every day eventually, and the biggest dilemma for an enterprise itself, if they have an opportunity which a market is throwing in terms of, and they can conceive a use case, but to put it in the enterprise strategy to take care of their MDM in terms of their core banking integrations or core system integrations, also in terms putting it a framework about whether they should extend their internet banking app, internet banking mobile, or should launch it as separate. So there's a huge confusion in this space. So this framework eventually enables you to reduce that cost eventually. It puts up a framework to rapidly deploy multiple apps which are a business use case app itself in a consistent framework, so that you don't have a lot of mess getting created in the backend. So the key things are rapid deployment. So we have a template based UI generation for auto rendering. We keep on making server components which are reusable, which are plug and play. Very strong capture toolkit of imaging, and ready-made adapters for the MDM and MAM, the directory services, so that you don't have to bother about how do you do the mobile device management, mobile data management. Also, again, very strong. We're always strong in adapter-based integrations to backend systems, both our enterprise system as well as the ECM and BPM systems. And the security becoming the key concern. We are end-to-end data encryption for data in motion or rest and role-based accesses there. This is what I could quickly cover in the roadmap. So because roadmaps are very difficult to probably present, because if you go on a feature level, they become very massive itself. But so I just stuck to the direction, and for the rest of days, any questions you would have on that, I would be keen to take up and solve. Thank you once again.